Listen, have you ever felt like in your creative career that you don't really have a lot of time for important relationships? You know, you got all these wonderful projects going on and you're making all this cool stuff. Your calendar is full, you're booked and busy, and you're making money, hopefully, but you don't really have time for people. Or vice versa. Maybe you're spending so much time building important relationships that you find yourself lacking the time for creativity, and you're just dying every single day to just get back to doing or making your thing. You're like, man, I love these people, but I really just want to make some stuff, doggone it. Well, if you've ever felt like your creative life and your relationships are out of balance, out of whack, you're not alone. All right, this is a very common thing. And today I want to share my tips for balancing creative work and the relationships that matter most. All right, let's get into it.
Get up, get crazy, let loose, set yourself free. Whoa, get up, set yourself free.
All right. Welcome back to the GodFrame Show, the podcast where we share stories and lessons to help you get unstuck and back to making the art that moves the world. My name is GodFrame. I'm your host. If this is your first time listening, welcome. So glad you're here. It's good to have you on the podcast, even though you're not talking back to me. It's just me talking to you. But I'm going to pretend like we're talking. You feel me? Like this is a conversation. All right. You can type back to me in the comments if you want to say stuff. But in the meantime, I love for this podcast to be relational, to be a conversation, if you will. So the conversation is going to continue after this. So you can hit me up in the DMs. You can find me on social at GodFrame, GodFrame, or hit me up at godframe.com afterward. All right. I want to build community with you. Oh, that sounded creepy. Let me try that again. I want to be a source of inspiration and hope and encouragement for you. All right. So hit me up anytime. Speaking of relationships, I want to tell you a quick story before I get into today's tips. I've been a creative individual for as long as I can remember. Started playing drums on pots and pans in my grandma's kitchen when I was 2 years old. Learned how to produce music, played the saxophone, played drums and keyboard and piano in church. I was acting in school plays and, doing like drama class and media class and making all these videos and stuff. Like I just always had my hands on something creative. And I remember days in high school where, after homework was done, or sometimes I wouldn't do my homework. No, I'm just kidding. I was actually a really good student. And so after, homework was done, especially like in the summertime when I didn't have homework, I would spend like all day if I could, and a lot of times all night, like staying up till like 5 or 6 in the morning with my cousins. Sometimes it's just like making stuff like, let's make these beats. Let's write these freestyles. Let's make this stuff. Like, let's edit these videos, shooting music videos on our own with cheap cameras. Like I was always making something, and it felt so good to have, seemingly unlimited time to do what I needed to do, right? Like I had all this energy, didn't have a lot of responsibilities. Eventually, I got like a part-time job or whatever. But, once that was over, it's like, boom, back to making stuff. And, same thing in college. Like, yes, I had homework and classes and campus ministry and all that stuff. But there were these long gaps between all the things I was responsible for where I could just make stuff. Whatever I could get my hands on, graphics, flyers, web design. Like, I loved creating, and it felt so good. Oh, it felt so good. Shout out to anybody who's in college right now and you don't have a ton of responsibilities. Like you are in a very special place, my friend. Just side note, all right? Enjoy that. But it felt good to have just all this time and energy to do all of the creative things I wanted to do. And I remember, I'll never forget this. I remember when Jasmine and I first got married. I had this perception that it would kind of be the same as it had already been. Like I would have all this extra time to do whatever I wanted to do and make whatever I wanted to make. And I remember one time Jasmine and I were talking about moving, from our first apartment to a larger apartment. And I was like, yeah, man, I would love if we can get like an extra bedroom and I can, set up my studio equipment again and like be able to make stuff. And she said, kind of jokingly, but I could tell she was serious. She was like, oh man, like then I will never see you if you did that. And, it stung a little bit. I was like, oh dang, like, wait a minute. She's kind of saying it in a joking way, but I can tell she was serious. And what she was alluding to was the reality that, my relationship with her was out of balance. It was out of balance. I was trying to keep working creatively the same way and at the same pace I had when I was in high school, in college, junior high even. But now I was married to the most important person to me on the planet. I had a spouse now. And so I couldn't spend the same amount of time that I used to creating things. That is, if I wanted my marriage to survive, right? And I do. This is till death do us part. You feel me? I'm not in this thing to just play around. And now I had to figure out how to balance my life with my wife, spending time with her, quality time, going on dates, spending time doing nothing together, speaking love languages to each other, like all that stuff. I had to figure out how to do that while also, not treating my creative pursuits like just some random side chick that I would see every now and then, right? And so the big idea here is that we were wired, we were made for relationships with God, relationships with our neighbors and our friends, and just with each other, period. Right? Like no one goes through life on their own island or in a silo. Some people may try to do it, but I would beg to argue that they're not happy. They're not fully fulfilled, even if they say they are. And there's a big piece of their lives missing because they're not involved in meaningful relationships with people. But the reality is, can we just be honest real quick? As a creative person, it is really hard sometimes to fit in the important people in your life because you are pursuing your creative pursuits, or vice versa. It is really hard sometimes to fit in creative pursuits because of the important relationships in your life. And so I'm no expert at this, but in my 9 years now of marriage and just like, in my different areas of life, dealing with different relationships and different people, friends, relatives, etc., kids now, it's not something that's impossible, but it does take effort to find meaningful balance and be able to give enough energy to your creative things, but also give energy to the people in your life. So I've learned a few things, and I'd love to share some tips with you today for, how I've been able to find more balance between, life and creativity. So here we go. All right, so my first tip, here we go. If you're looking to find more balance in your creative pursuits and in your relationships, first tip is to set boundaries and communicate them. All right, set boundaries and communicate them. I'm gonna throw some scripture up in this piece. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, this is from the Bible, it says, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up. And, the scripture goes on, but the gist of it here is that there is a time and a season for everything, or at least there should be, which means, when it comes to setting boundaries, you should set aside a time to create, a time to make things, especially if you have a lot of responsibilities in your life, which if you're listening, I'm sure you do. But don't just let your creative pursuits kind of just land in your lap whenever, they just randomly come to you, or you randomly find a spare moment like, ooh, nothing's going on, or, I'm by myself at the house. Let me just now make something like that. That works, but it's not really sustainable if you want to feel fulfilled in your creative pursuits. My suggestion would be find a time on your calendar that works for you and for the people in your life, and guard that time. If it's an hour a day, if it's 2 hours a day, if it's just like a chunk of 4 hours a week, whatever it is, whatever you have room for, put that thing in your calendar. You're going to hear me talk about calendars like a lot in this podcast because I am a stickler for if something is important, if it means something to you, it deserves a spot on your calendar and you should fight to keep that thing. Even if it's a meeting with yourself, like you time, those things should be scheduled as well and guarded. What I mean by guarded is, don't let any and everyone just interrupt your creative time. Someone comes to you and like, hey, yo, can you come do such and such and such with me? You can say, well, no, because I've got to be somewhere at, 3:00. And if they ask, like, well, what are you doing? Like, you're not that busy. You're like, well, this is my time I've set aside to create, to make my thing. This is something important to me in my life, and I have to guard this time wisely. So while I would love to come with you to the whatever and help you with the thing, right now I've got to prioritize this creative pursuit, right? And if they love you, if they respect you, they'll respect that decision. If not, punch them in the face. No, I'm just kidding. Don't punch them in the face. Don't do that. Stop. But, you should be able to guard that creative time. I know personally, I feel like a crazy person when I can't create. Like for real, like I feel like I'm stuffed up and I just need to sneeze, or I've got like a big fart trapped in my body and it's painful and like, this gas pain. I got to get this out. I got to make something. And I even like for a while, because my calendar got really busy for a season earlier this year, and I just did not have time to make stuff. I literally would pull up the Notes app on my phone, and on iPhone now you have this feature where you can draw, right? Like you can draw, quote unquote, inside of a note. And so, and you could add colors. And so I would just literally, like, we'd be sitting at like a pediatrician's office and I'm like, oh my God, I'm ready to get out of here. Just go make something. I would just pull my phone out and just like start scribbling different colors and rainbow swirls and things, like just so my brain would know, like, hey, it's okay. You're making something. Relax. All right. You're getting it out. Okay. But yeah, you have to like set your boundaries, but then also let people know about those boundaries. Right? Like get buy-in from them, especially if they're a significant person in your life. Like don't just shut the world out and be like, yeah, nah, you know what I'm saying? I'm doing X, Y, Z creatively, all weekend long. I'm not talking to anybody. Like you can do that, but maybe give people a heads up. Hey, yo, I'm going to be out. I'm going in a cabin in the woods, for a week to just make stuff. All right, I'll be back. Like, I won't be answering my phone. I won't be answering texts or emails, but I'll check in every now and then. So a bear did not eat me, right? Whatever it is, like, let people know. Communicate your creative boundaries. Because here's the thing. No person can have all of you. All right? I need you to hear me very closely. Nobody can have all of you. But they do deserve the most whole version of you when they do get you. What I mean by that is, if you are, connecting with people and spending time with folks and you're just in shambles and you're crazy and you're stressed out and you're like just stuffed up creatively and you're just like anxious and have to create a thing and you're rude and you're short and snippy and you mad at them and they're like, bro, what you snapping at me for? And you're like, I just want to go make something. And you're like, that's not my fault. Like, what you mean? Like, don't destroy your relationships, all right? But make sure that you're showing up holistically whenever you are relating with people. Y'all can probably hear my dog barking in the background. I hope not. She need to be quiet. Georgia, stop, bruh. Chill. She's out there terrorizing the whole neighborhood. She used to not even bark. Like, side note, this has nothing to do with the podcast, but it's my podcast, so hush. She used to not bark at all. Like, when we first got her, she was the quietest puppy. She was so nice, and she still is nice. But now, lately, like all year, I think, she's been just, like, terrorizing the neighborhood from the backyard. Anything she hears coming across the fence or walking around in the neighborhood, she's just like going nuts, barking, waking people up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, yo, you gotta chill or you're getting evicted. All right. That had nothing to do with this podcast, but let's keep it going. All right. That's my first tip. Set boundaries and communicate them. Tip number 2, if you want to have more balance in your creative pursuits and in your relationships, I need you to know the season that you're in. All right? Know the season that you're in. Because here's the deal. There are going to be times in your creative life where you are busy AF. Like, it's like nonstop. You're grinding. you got projects, you got clients, you got, endeavors going on. Like, there's just all this stuff. And it's like, oh my God, like, when am I going to come up for air? Like, that's a busy season. But there's also going to be slow seasons in your life. We see that with my video production company all the time. It's kind of seasonal for the most part. Like, we have a lot of client work, kind of in that spring, summer, kind of early fall period. But then, like, once the holidays kind of roll around, and then like the top of the year, like that first quarter, it's not a lot going on, depending on what clients we're working with. And so we use that time to, build more relationships, and spend time with one another, Jasmine and I, since we both work in the business, and, working on the business. But this is not about business. This is about relationships. You got to know when you're in a busy season and when you're in a slow season. And when you are in a busy season, you won't have much time for those relationships. And that's okay, especially if you're building a thing that you hope to make full time, or if it is full time for you and you're still in the building season, you're not going to have a lot of time for people. And that's hard and it hurts. For me, especially, like, I love people. I love spending time with folks. If I could just sit in a room and just talk to people all day, maybe I should be a therapist or something. Like, if I could just talk to people, groups of folks, and just like chat and shoot the breeze and like somehow get paid for it, ultimate dream for me. All right. Bonus points if there are cameras involved and, we're putting this stuff out on social media. Anywho, when you're in a busy season, you don't have a lot of time for that. And the people in your life need to know that, especially if they mean something to you. Like, know that, hey, in this time, you have to know, and those other people have to know, like, hey, right now, these 3 months, these 6 months, my time is going to be limited. I might be able to see you once a month. I might be able to call you, twice a month, whatever. Like, but we're not going to be able to kick it every night and go eat nachos and watch Netflix and stuff. Like, I just can't do that right now because I'm in a building or a busy season. All right. So you got to know what season you're in. Right now, what that looks like for me, being a father of young kids, is the busiest season I've ever experienced in my life. Oh my God. Having kids, especially young kids, and also having a young business, actually multiple businesses that are just getting off the ground full time. Oh, it has been the hardest thing I've ever done, if I'm honest. Like, I love my kids to pieces, and they give me so much joy, and they're such a gift from God. But I also love my creative pursuits, and I love my business endeavors. And both of those things, they require so much time and energy and sanity and oomph and pizzazz and zest. Like, they take everything from you, both the business and creative stuff and my kids. Like, they need a lot. And many days, y'all, I'm still trying to figure this out. Like, I am butchering it some days, where like I literally will just sit at this desk and work myself to pieces through the night, especially if it's a heavy, busy season with client work. Like, I will just work and work and work and work. And my kids are starting to get old enough now, like they're 5 and 7, where, they know, like they get it. Like, I am actually working and I am actually too busy to play with them in certain moments or to have dinner with them sometimes. Now, it's rare that I'll miss dinner. Like, that's pretty much a non-negotiable for me. Like, we stop everything and eat, pretty much all meals together as a family. But there's occasions where it's like, yo, I got this deadline and it came through last minute and I have to do it. And it's, we got to feed our family. And so it's tough, man. It is really tough, but it's not impossible. Because what I do, on the flip side of it, is I'll take, 3 or 4 days off at a time if I need to, and like take them somewhere. Like, let's go on a trip or let's go play. Like, I'll have you for a whole Saturday. Like, let's just go and do whatever. Let's have a whole adventure. You want ice cream? Absolutely. You want to go to Chuck E. Cheese? Let's go. And you want to go to Dave and Buster's? Let's do it. Oh, you want to go camping? Absolutely. All in one day. Like, there are rhythms that I'm getting used to, and I think you can probably relate to this, that, life is just kind of, it goes in waves. It comes up and it goes down, and there's lefts and rights, even though I don't think waves go left and right. But you know what I'm saying? There are times when you can spend a lot of time with the people you love, and there are also seasons when you can't spend that much time. And you've got to be able to communicate that and embrace it and be ready for it, because that's just a part of life. All right. Oh, this is good. I feel like I'm getting vulnerable here. You know what I'm saying? I like getting transparent. I got one more trip. I got one more tip for you. But before I do that, we're gonna take a quick commercial break and hear from our sponsors. All right. Okay.
Get up, set yourself free.
This podcast is brought to you by Lamar Haley Entertainment, helping global brands and creators leverage music, film and TV, and digital content to engage audiences on a human level. Discover more at lamarhaley.com.
Being a creator isn't easy. Whether you're juggling last-minute deadlines, working with difficult clients or team members, or you're just not feeling confident in the things you create, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, frustrated, and like no one understands what you're going through. Well, here at Team GodFrame, we got you. That's why we created the GodFrame mailing list, a weekly-ish newsletter full of stories, tips, and inspiration to help you thrive on your creative journey so you can get back to making art that moves the world. Get that creative boost you've been waiting for from GodFrame straight to your inbox. Sign up now at godframe.com/mailing-list.
Got a question you want to get answered on the show? Or you just want to give a shout out? Now you can. With the Anchor platform, you can record a personalized voice message for a chance to be featured on an upcoming episode of The GodFrame Show. Leave a message now at godframe.com/podcast.
Set yourself free.
All right, welcome back. We are talking about how to balance your creative endeavors and the relationships with the people who matter most in your life. It is a hard thing to do, but it's not impossible. It just takes intentionality. All right. Both your creative pursuits and the people that you love, they can pull on you a lot, but there are ways to have a more balanced, thriving creative life and personal life. All right. It is possible. My third tip for you, my last one, is create a schedule for the people who matter most in your life. All right. I talked about having a schedule for making things. You need to have a schedule sometimes for the people in your life. If they are important, and some of them might get offended at this, so you don't have to tell them, but just kind of do this on your end. Some people may get offended and be like, man, what? You put me on your calendar? Like, what do you mean? Like, why do you have to do that? Well, it's because you're so important to me that I want to make sure I intentionally make time for you, right? And not just wait for a random moment to come up. A quick story. I used to, my note says that I used to take forever to text people back. That's actually a lie. I still take forever to text people back. If you know me personally, if you've ever sent me a text message, you know that if I don't hit you right back, like if I happen to be looking at my phone right that moment and I'm like, bam, oh, you're texting me, let me text you back. If I'm not looking at my phone, like you might not hear back from me for a week at least. I'm working on it. I'm trying to get better. But the way I see it, just because somebody texts you doesn't mean that, they may be expecting an immediate answer, but that doesn't mean you're available to immediately answer. And then the way I be working, I'm like, I be tired. I'm like, man, at the end of the day, I don't feel like talking to nobody. I don't feel like texting. And so I'll just wait and wait and wait and wait. And eventually, 2 weeks, 3 weeks goes by and I'm like, oh yeah, great video. That was awesome. Thanks for sending it over. And some people, when they're not used to how I text, they'll be like, bro, I hit you back like a year ago. What happened? But the people, who are close to me who know, they're like, oh no. Okay, what's up? Thanks for hitting me back, bro. What's up? Here's another question for you. Or, ooh, did you think about this? Like there's no friction because they know. And vice versa. I know when I text a lot of my friends, I don't expect them to hit me back for at least like 3 or 4 days because they're grinding, they're busy. It's a whole thing, right? But I'm trying to get better, okay? I'm trying to maintain my relationships. But outside of texting people back, I think it's an important idea for you maybe to consider scheduling time for the people who matter the most. And sometimes these people are close friends. Sometimes they're acquaintances. But I recommend that you utilize, texts and phone calls and emails and lunches even. Like put that stuff in your calendar. Once every week, I'm going to text so-and-so. Boom, put a reminder up there. Or, ooh, once a month, I need to call so-and-so, right? And it depends on, the level of depth of your relationship. If they're one of your parents, you're probably going to have a different communication cadence with them than you are with, somebody that you just met at a networking event last month. Like, that shouldn't be the same, all right? Even like, while we've been in pandemic land, I've gotten in the habit of scheduling virtual lunches with people, and I still do, like virtual coffees, virtual lunches. And it's been pretty good. It's dope. Like, a lot of people I do it like twice a month with. Some people I do it once a month with. And either way, like when the time comes, it never fails. Like when it's about to come up on my calendar, I'm like, man, I haven't talked to so-and-so in a while. And I'll look on my calendar and like, oh, snap, 2 days from now, we're having virtual coffee or virtual lunch. Perfect timing, right? It's just a good way to keep in touch with people without having to think about it so much, and making sure that you have a communication cadence that is consistent. If you're dating or married, date nights, very essential. Something I got to get better at. Jasmine and I, we do date nights like once every blue moon, and we enjoy them, and they're great, and we need them. But for a while, we kind of had a cadence of like, every other Friday or Saturday, like we're going out. And so I'm looking forward to getting back to that. So figure out what your cadence is, depending on who these people are in your life. Once a quarter, once a month, once every 2 weeks, once a week, once a day, whatever it is, but create a schedule to keep up with the people who matter most in your life, all right? That's it for today's episode. My challenge for you today is pick one person that you want to spend more time with, all right? And find a spot in your schedule for a regular cadence. Like, actually ask them what works for them. Let them know, hey, look, I'm looking to build our relationship more I'm looking to build our relationship more intentionally. So let me know how often you want to chat, whether in person or virtually. All right, let's keep building this thing together, because my whole aim for you is to not go through life making so much stuff that you get to the finish line and there's no one beside you to enjoy it with, and vice versa. That you spend so much time with the people you love that you end up not making anything significant in your life. All right, it's possible. You got this. You can do it. Thank you so much for tuning in today. This is the GodFrame Show. My name is GodFrame, your host, and I hope you have the best day of your life. You feel me? The best year of your life, even. And as always, I'll talk to you soon. Peace.